And the French academic says, no, it's impossible. That name couldn't be known because that language had been dead for thousands of years before that. So it's impossible for him to know this. Therefore, what they said is that if you really want to know about this, go to Germany, go to the German documents. So Dr. Morris Buchel went to Germany, went to the German documents on Egyptology, and they found Haman was essentially at the top of the list. He was the top man in Pharaoh's cabinet. And his title was head of the stone quarries, head of construction, essentially. So we find that no speaker had this, with the exception of who? Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, but I should speak was Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, it was Allah Azza wa Jalla. Another, that's one orientalist critique of Quran. Another critique, which is quite interesting, this is done by a man called Theodore Noldeck. He's, you could say, a heavy orientalist who tried to critique Quran very heavily. And he came to the conclusion that the Quran is an incoherent book. It's just a shapeless book that's just all over the place. And he then came to the conclusion that if a man cannot produce a book with any order, he must be ignorant. So he said that Prophet ﷺ is an ignorant man because he can't form a coherent book. That's quite interesting because some of our scholars have actually noted this about the Quran as well. Maulana Maududi, for example, is one of the subcontinental scholars, rahimahullah. He said that in his tafsir collection, he wrote a book called Tahfim al-Quran. He says in his introduction that for the average reader, when they read Quran, it appears to be very chaotic. Subject matter changes for no apparent reason, the theme changes for no apparent reason, there's a haphazard arrangement of verses, there doesn't seem to be any structure. And so we tend to find this within our own books. And Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi, he's one of the early commentators of Quran, he's a mufassir. He actually has quite an interesting point. And what he says is that when you come across a book which doesn't seem to follow any conventional rules, because as human beings we like convention, we're used to some sort of convention. When we read books or novels, we have an introduction, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, conclusion. The Quran doesn't really have that. So when Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi says that when you come across a book without any apparent coherency, it actually forces you to change your worldview. That as we live in society, due to education, due to media, due to societal norms, we produce some sort of criteria as to what life should be about. We produce some sort of norms or principles as to how society should run. So each and every one of you will have some sort of an idea as what morality is. We'll have some sort of an idea as to what justice is, right and wrong. As human beings, we have that. But the fact is, the Quran may have a completely different understanding or different approach to your own understanding. So that means you need to undo your own worldview and let the Quran impose its ideas upon you, not the other way around. So the fact is, when we have a supposedly incoherent book, it's almost like Allah saying that my coherency is what's the order of the day. Anything that you've learned, you need to put it to one side. Another way of looking at this is that in Quran we find a particular type of ayah or particular type of word which is referred to as mutashabiyat. Mutashabiyat means ambiguous, or something that we don't really know the meaning of. For example, the typical example is Alif Lam Mim, which we find at the start of Surah Al-Baqarah. Alif Lam Mim is interesting. Imam Fakhruddin al-Razi says that when we open the Quran, the first surah is what? Surah Al-Fatiha. And the main theme of Surah Al-Fatiha is guidance. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim, guidance to the straight path. And then we turn the page and the first thing we come across is Alif Lam Mim, something we have no clue about. Mutashabiyat ayah. So what Fakhruddin al-Razi says that for you to attain guidance, the first thing you need to do is to intellectually humble yourself. You can't be arrogant or proud and think you know it all. You've got to put yourself down here. And the Mutashabiyat actually forces you to do that because you don't know what it is. And once you intellectually humble yourself, then after that you can actually attain guidance. So any preconceived notions of what life is about or what it should be, you've got to put that to one side. And then only then can you actually attain guidance. Okay, I'm running out of time, aren't I? How much time do I have left? Okay, I've got 1 minute left. Okay, very quickly, I've got only 1 minute left. I've got a few more pages to go through. But I'll have to wait for another time now. Right. Okay, but this concept of coherency or lack of coherency, whichever you want to look at it, it's actually been the main argument against Quran from an Orientalist point of view. Is they don't really have any meaty objection to Quran. They just say this is the book which has no coherency at all. As a matter of fact, there's a British writer, his name is Sebastian Faulks. He's a novelist, and he said that the Quran is a schizophrenic book. Schizophrenia, when you have split personality, you go one direction, another direction. He said that it's a schizophrenic book. Obviously, when you have a convention in your mind, you're going to make that conclusion. So it just shows that how misguided he is, that he's trying to put the criteria of a novel onto the Quran. But the Quran is not a novel. It's not a conventional book. There's another way of looking at it is, and this is the view of Imam Islahi. He's a subcontinental scholar. He says that actually there's some amazing coherency in Quran, but it's something that you don't actually get just by doing a surface reading. You've got to go through a process called tadabbur. Tadabbur essentially means that you ponder. It means almost like digging out, going deep into something and just extracting something. And that's something that we should all be doing, tadabbur of the Quran, pondering on the Quran. And one example of tadabbur, I'll quickly go through this now. There's a concept called palindrome. Fancy word. Palindrome basically means is that if you take a word and you spell it backwards, you get the same word. If the word mum, the word dad, Bob, race car, you spell it one way, spell it backwards, it's the same word. In Quran we have a palindrome. It's quite interesting. I want to ask for the slide. Go back. Go back again. Okay. Okay, this is an ayah surah al-Mudaththir. This Rabbaka fakabbir. I want to go to the next slide now. What we've done, we've removed the harakat. Harakat means where the sounds come off, the vowels essentially. Next slide. Okay, we split the words, we've broken the words into the individual letters. Now what do you see here? Now the wa is at the front. Put that to one side. After that is the ra, the ba, ra. Rabbaka fakabbir. So you spell it one way, spell it the other way, it's the same word. And the next slide. Go again. And he is your Lord, so magnify him. And one way we magnify him is through his Quran. And through the process of tadabbur or pondering, we come to these types of conclusions where you can come to the conclusion that it's only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's book. Jazakumullah khair.
Jazakallah khair, Brother Saqib. I think we've run a bit over, but we'll stop for a quick break now, inshallah. So help yourself to tea, coffee, biscuits at the side. Make it 10 minutes for the break, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.